Hey, welcome back to another episode of The Drunken Cryptid.
Was these two globes. I don't know how to describe them. And I stood up there and looked at them, and it's like...
I just couldn't hold it anymore, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was a chupacabra. I was so excited.
They were referring to Bigfoot.
There are voices in the darkness. The reason why this show is called Drunken Cryptid.
All right, we're going.
All right, and welcome to the Cryptid Friendsgiving. I want to give a special shout out to our special guests that we have with us, everybody around the world. This is pretty awesome. So, of course, we've got Eric from Uncomfortable. Eric, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Happy holidays.
And we've got Chris and Alan from Nevermore Hollows. Alan.
Hey, guys.
And, of course, our favorite Chris.
Hi.
And, of course, sitting with me again, as always, is Jacob.
What's up, everybody?
So, but we want to do something special for you guys for Thanksgiving. Everybody focuses on Christmas, and I wanted to kind of do a unique show for Thanksgiving. And I thought the name, a Cryptid Friendsgiving would be good. Everybody's going to be busy, obviously, throughout the Christmas time. And there's going to be a ton of shows, a ton of collaborations out there. And I wanted to set us apart. And I thought it would be a really neat idea to get, 3 shows together, gather around the table, and just visit as friends should. And that's the whole entire spirit, I think, of Thanksgiving, is to give thanks and to be grateful for each other.
Exactly.
And being a small fish in this big pond with you guys, I'm actually truly honored to have you guys on the show. And I can't wait to see what direction it is. And, of course, all of us are the same way. We don't do anything scripted. We do everything raw. And we're going to set it up in that, atmosphere and environment for everybody to listen to. So without further ado, I guess we'll just, I'll start with me, and then we'll go to Eric, and then we'll go to Nevermore Hollows. We'll tell everybody where to find the shows at. Is that good?
Cool.
All right. So, of course, I'm Matthew Wharton, one of the hosts of the Drunken Cryptids. I got Jacob with me. He helps co-host from time to time. We're on all your streaming platforms. We do an investigative style show, and we do a interview style show as well. So you can find us at drunkencryptids.com. You can email us, and I'm on all your social media platforms. And that's the Drunken Cryptids. I
am Eric Szilagyi, host of Uncomfortable Podcast, available on all the different platforms, including YouTube. If you guys take a look, you may not have seen anything from me recently. I think beginning of August might have been the first or the last thing that I put out. Needed to take a little break. Had some life-changing events. Lost 100 pounds in the last year, and realized that there were a lot of things I was missing out on. So I decided to take the summer off and enjoy some of those things I hadn't been able to do. But we're back. I'm in the studio. I've got some really good shows coming up. So we're going to be back at it, hitting it hard, and hopefully having some good shows for you every week. Again, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65, and you can look up on any of your podcast platforms. All you have to do is search Uncomfortable Eric, ERICK, and you'll see the black and white logo with the lowercase U and the uppercase N. That's me.
Cool.
So I'm Alan, and I am the creator of the Nevermore Hollows podcast, and I have Chris Madman Goins with me. He is the co-host, art director, and voice actor, and everything else. And what we do is we write and produce, horror stories. That's our bread and butter. That's what people are gravitating toward, and that's what we love to do. And we're on all the podcast platforms, whatever your favorite is, and we're on YouTube, trying to grow that. So any subscriptions there be well appreciated. And you can contact us through, Nevermore Hollows and all the social medias. We're there.
Yep.
All right.
And you can go on Instagram at Black Sheep Studios and see the artwork that I do for Nevermore Hollows and then other things that I do. So
Talented
Yeah,
guys.
Chris is a very talented artist. He really is. If you haven't checked it out, he's got a ton of beautiful artwork that he does, and it's done in a really awesome, almost kind of a cartoonish style, but not a cartoonish style. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, I call myself a cartoonist instead of an artist because artists hang in museums and I hang in people's bathrooms. So, there you
I'm
go.
still waiting for my piece of work to come down here for the tavern.
Yeah.
I'm working on it. There you go. Got
I gotta give you a hard
I
time.
got commissions. I know, dude. I know, but I've got a couple things coming to the Drunken Cryptids. Also, I get to christen my truck with my Drunken Cryptid sticker
Yes.
this afternoon. So,
I know I gotta get Eric.
So
I got Eric. After this, you gotta text me your address. I'll send you a couple stickers.
All right. Actually, we should probably all exchange addresses because I've got a couple of uncomfortable stickers I can send out too.
same.
sweet.
We got some stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So everybody needs to check out Chris's stuff. He's got stuff for sale, not just Nevermore Hollow stuff. He's got some awesome stuff for sale. So support your local artist and your not so local artist, since we're worldwide at the moment. So there you go. All right. So let's get into it, gentlemen. What's the first topic?
And I love the pause.
Everybody's looking at you.
I know. Well, Eric, we'll start with you, I guess, because first off, congratulations on losing 100 pounds. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude.
Thank you.
Is that the carnivore
Way to
diet?
go.
It is carnivore diet. Yeah.
I've heard a lot of good rumors about that.
I don't even want to call it a diet anymore. It was November 1st was a full year. So I'm just into started my second year. It's life changing because I didn't have to have a surgery. I didn't have to use any kind of drugs, any of the new injectable weight loss pens that seem to be so popular with the diabetic and celebrity crowds for losing weight. It's just eliminating. It was designed as an elimination diet for people who had really severe autoimmune disorders. And once you start removing processed foods and chemicals and all the things that you can't pronounce on the sides of the ingredients of boxes of stuff that we buy, and you get rid of the sugar, and your body adapts to having fat as a fuel source versus carbohydrates as a fuel source. I've effectively eliminated I'm 59 years old. I'll be 60 in June. I've eliminated the arthritis in my hands. I've eliminated the arthritis in my knees. I no longer have chronic back pain. My brain fog is kind of gone. It's I've said this before and it sounds like an overreaction, but I literally, I feel superhuman comparative to a year ago.
Yeah.
I'm just at 97 pounds. So, when I say 100 pounds, I'm rounding up, but pretty goddamn close. So,
Yeah, man.
I would encourage absolutely anybody. And I haven't done it blindly. I've done have my blood work done because, the first thing everybody says is, "Whoa, what about your cholesterol?" Well, yeah, you're eating a lot of cholesterol, but do you know what mother's breast milk is made up of? The majority of it's made up of cholesterol.
And the brain lining is made up of cholesterol. So cholesterol is not the evil thing that they make it out to be.
Exactly.
No.
My mom had dementia and Alzheimer's in the last couple of years of her life. And it's interesting, like the more you dig into this, studies are being shown that elderly that are passing away from dementia and Alzheimer's, because these things are being studied on a regular basis, and they're trying to come up with a drug to circumvent those diseases. But what they're finding out is that these people that are dying with these two things, and any other kind of cognitive issues, other than a traumatic brain injury, is that they are very low in cholesterol.
Yeah.
And,
now, I'll tell you this, just to dovetail off of that, brother. For some years, I ran a medical billing company, right, where I had all these clients that were physicians, and I had one local physician out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. He well respected. I mean, one of the guys that if you got him as a client, other clients were coming just because they're like, well, if Bill's there, I'm going. Yeah. And he and I, we did business together for over a decade. And he came to me one day, and I was in there talking to him, and he goes, I have lost all faith in American medicine and Western medicine. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I've seen some stuff lately. He goes, everything that I'm seeing now, he goes, my world view has been rocked. He goes, the fact that we're trying to cut out, the carbohydrate, well, not the carbohydrates, but what we were just talking about. He says the fact, yeah, he says, I've seen studies now that have just rocked my world. He goes, man, he goes, I believe, and I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist anyway. He says, but I believe that Western medicine is designed to push everybody toward a pill. He says, I think the diet is designed to push everybody to the doctor, and the doctors are incentivized to put people on pills. And he goes, I've been a doctor for 30 years. And yes, he goes, I can't tell you how many times a drug rep comes in here and says, of course, they made it illegal. They finally made it illegal where if you'll push our drug, we'll send you, and so he had lost all belief in American medicine. And he started pushing his people toward more holistic approaches to their lifestyle and all that. And then to finish that thought there, Chris, all right, so you guys don't know my son. My son's 23. He was always the little fat, chubby kid, right? That was awkward. He looks like a freaking Viking now.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
He's a monster.
And that's what he does, Chris. I mean, he works out every day. He's got a passion for working out, but he's on the carnivore diet and has been on it now for over a year. And he's massive. I mean, massive in bulk and he looks like he just stepped off a Viking ship ready to, to pillage a little, village.
I know how Eric feels. I lost 150 pounds.
Good for you, man.
And at my largest, I was 450 pounds, and knees, ankles, all that stuff. When I lost that, I lost a person. Yeah. And my knees and stuff are better. I can move better. I still have chronic arthritis, just because I was a human forklift for most of my life. But I know how you feel, man, and congratulations on that. It ain't an easy thing to do, dude, but it's worth it. And
I've yo-yoed on different types of diets a lot of my adult life. And when you say it's not easy to do, I agree 100%. I don't want to minimize that, but the carnivore diet, the carnivore way of eating, I got to stop calling it a diet because it has now become a lifestyle change for me.
Right.
Is not difficult because it's so satiating because of the protein and the fat. It keeps you full and you don't have cravings. And it's just, like Alan, you said you're somewhat of a conspiracy minded person, and I am too. I never let that out in my show because if I tell my opinions on conspiracies and it's not correct, and there's somebody that believes me, then I've hurt the situation more than I've helped it. But I am conspiratorial, and I'm telling you, if there's one conspiracy that people should pay more freaking attention to, it is the conspiracy that when you walk into a grocery store, everything you're putting into your cart is fucking good for you. Or if it says low fat, that it's good for you. Because like when you start boiling it down, people who are diabetic, the types of foods that they tell diabetics to eat are things that are continuing the problem for their diabetes.
Yeah.
Well, there's more money
Yeah.
in treating the symptom than there is in treating the patient.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And look,
Yeah.
that's what my client friend said. He said, Alan, he goes, I've made myself a wealthy man being a doctor. He goes, but it is the treatment, and he goes, and he had that epiphany, he said, I've always heard that, it's more profitable in treating than curing. He says, but after what I've seen, and he had went to some alternative medicine conferences is what triggered this. And he says, I believe it. But, being an investigator and a conspiracy minded man, here's how I approach everything. I used to work with a group of other investigators, and they were like, Eric, there's $1,000 missing, and Eric was there. Therefore, Eric is my suspect. So I'm going to try to prove that Eric did it. Well, guess what? Whether Eric did it or not, I can find enough circumstantial evidence to prove that Eric did it. My approach was always, let me prove Eric's innocence. If I can't prove Eric's innocence, then there may be smoke to the fire or fire to the smoke that he is guilty. So I was a very effective investigator. So Eric, when I approach any type of a conspiracy, idea, I always approach it with that approach. It's, can I disprove it? Right. If I cannot disprove it, there may be a nugget of truth. And then I have to start, going, how does this fit my worldview?
Mm-hmm.
And
over the
I
years,
handle my investigations.
Yeah. Well, you have to, because, otherwise you do what Eric was saying. You end up jeopardizing your credibility, because if I'm latched on to everything and pushing everything that comes out, then I'm that crazy guy that's got the all the ribbons pointing to,
the strings,
Yeah.
But if you,
when I handle an investigation, I'm the same way on the paranormal side. Somebody comes to me and they want you, check out, an alleged haunted area. The same idea. I'm going to go in and prove that it's not haunted versus it being haunted. When we did our Reed's Bridge investigation, everybody there was having something but me, and I, so I was debunking all the way through it. And I still keep, the only thing that I could not debunk while we were there was the one person who got touched and showed up, and not a believer in this stuff, just thought it'd be fun to come hang out. And I mean, this person was crying, never had an encounter, and that one I could not. That one I was like, okay, and they don't want to, and doesn't want to come on the show to talk about it. And so it kind of left a little mark on that one. So that's the case there. But real quick though, before I lose my train of thought, you were talking about medicine. I got my eyes checked in 2020. I needed glasses, and I had the early stages of what's that called, where you'll start getting spots in your eyes, and it'll eventually be able to go blind to a point. Can't remember what that's called, but it runs in my family. And the doctor told me that I had the early stages of that. He detected it, and I was like, okay. And he asked me, do you take multivitamins? And I said, yeah, I do. I take a multivitamin once a day. And he said, stop. He said, that's a huge leading cause to it. And I quit that day. I stopped. I got my eyes rechecked about 3-4 months ago. And I told the doctor, what he had said before, a couple of years ago. And they said, well, we'll check again and look, and detected none of it.
Wow.
Well, let me piggyback on that as far as experiences with doctors. So, like I said, I started this November 1st of 2023. 6 months before that, I had gone to the doctor and had blood work done, and my A1C was for shit. I was considered pre-diabetic. They wanted to put me on metformin. I thankfully said no, because in my brain, I was going to try to figure something out, going back to a diet or having surgery or whatever. I mean, I was kind of the last straw. So I had my blood work done and everything. My blood pressure was high. My cholesterol was high. My good levels were bad and my bad levels were worse. And, so 6 months into doing the carnivore, I wanted to get a kind of a gauge of, what is this doing to me? Is it, am I listening to the people that says this is going to make everything worse? Or am I listening to the people that say, oh, things will start to correct? And in 6 months, my blood pressure had gone down to perfectly within well within the good normal range. My A1C had corrected. My triglycerides had corrected considerably. And everything that was bad in my blood work, if it had not returned to normal, it was on a complete downward trend to go back to normal.
It's awesome, man.
Take that into consideration. And then, not having the aches and pains. Now, some of it, yes, is weight related, but others of it, the toughest part of talking to anybody about this way of eating is like vegetables and fruits are good for you, right? They're
Right.
natural sugars. They're natural. It's natural. God put them here on the. Okay, so anything that grows in the ground that's edible is going to have a predator, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
There's going to be something that eats that specific carrot or whatever the vegetable is. If everything alive is capable of eating that, then it would not have a chance in hell of staying around. It would be eaten and it would not reproduce, right?
Yeah.
So when my girlfriend started eating this same way, and she had no reason whatsoever other than she wanted to prove to herself that what I was doing, what I was saying was correct. And she wanted to see if she was going to get the same benefits out of it. The 49-year-old aches and pains and whatever. And it did. But then she, God bless her, she digs more into things. So she got this book and it was about vegetables. And in vegetables, there are things called oxalates. And oxalates pretty much store up in the human body. Some people's systems process them better than others. But many people don't process oxalates, and oxalates will gather into joints, and it is very similar to gout because the oxalates create tiny little crystalline features that deposit in your joints and cause aches and pains and arthritis and those types of things. So when I went to the doctor and I got my blood test done, and then I went in to have a conversation with him about how my blood had gone back to being good, he said, how are you, what are you doing? So I explained to him, my new way of eating. And, the entire time I was talking to him, he literally had that look on his face and, very dismissive and very disapproving. And he's, he continued to caution me. He's like, you got to be careful because, your cholesterol and you're going to have this and the body has to have fiber in order for you to take a good dump. Well, I'm here to tell you, a year and a half into, or a little over a year into doing this, not having fiber, I go to the bathroom all the time. It's fine. You don't need fiber. You don't need vegetables in your diet to take a shit. And the other thing is like fruit. You go to the grocery store and you buy a Honeycrisp apple. Best goddamn apple on the planet. Nice and crisp. It's cold, super sweet, fucking phenomenal apples. Do you think that apple is the same exact apple that was the original apple? Let's go back.
No.
Is that the same apple that Adam and Eve took a bite of?
No.
It's been
In fact,
hybridized.
isn't the Honeycrisp? Doesn't it have a patent on it? I think the last time I checked in it's got a patent.
They've been hybridized over the generations to get nice crisp skin and super sweet taste. The sugar content in what would have been the original apple was considerably lower than what the sugar content is now. So where good old-fashioned apples might have been healthy option for us, we don't have that option anymore because everything is now designed to be super sweet and very attractive to the palate. And it just, so I got rid of vegetables. I got rid of fruit. I still take a good dump, and I've lost a shit ton of weight. I'm healthier than I have been in years. And at the end of the conversation with the doctor, I literally told him, I said, you know what? I have done the things that you're saying I should do. I'm not going to do it again because all it was a fucking yo-yo. I would lose some weight and then it would come back, and I would lose some weight and it would come back. I said, I'm going to continue to do this. I'm 58, 59 years old, 59 at the time of the test. It's not like I've got 50, 60 years ahead of me. If this stuff is going to kill me, so what if I only get 20 years? I'm still going to be into my 70s, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But when push came to shove and I said, I'm not going to change the way I'm doing it because I haven't felt this great in over 10 years. Then he tells me that he's got 5 other patients that are doing the same thing. And he's been monitoring them for the longest one for, I think, up to the last 3 years. And he really has nothing that he can say that is like drastically a problem with any of them. So why the pushback when I'm trying to tell him what I'm doing?
Yeah.
But then
at
the end,
he's right. He's he still bought into that Western style of medicine that, I need, and here's the thing, like I still unfortunately have to take blood pressure medicine. I've tried to get off of it. I got so sick last year when I tried to break myself, because I'm eating better, I'm exercising. So I go to the doctor and he goes, do you know what's happening to you? Now, this is the same guy, right? He says, he goes, we have to wean people off of this, even though, your body now can regulate itself because you are healthier, you are doing the right things. We have to wean you off because your body's in withdrawal.
Oh,
Think about that. Think about that, guys. We're all addicted.
Anytime they do put us on
to
there,
it.
we have to wean yourself off. I got put on antidepressants back in May, and I was a zombie. And where the VA told me straight up, you need to wean yourself off, and my answer to that was no. And so I quit. I just straight up quit.
right.
And quitting again, my brain fog disappeared, everything disappeared, and it's so much better. And there's 2 things I want to piggyback on real quick. One, Eric, you talked about fruits and vegetables, and they have a predator. The acids in pineapple, if you eat too much of it, can actually cause damage to your stomach.
Stomach lining.
So there's exactly. So there's proof of that right there. And then we talked about talking about Western medicine and them holding on to that ideal. And that brought it to my mind. I'm going to start the conversation here in a second, and I think you're going to love where I'm going to go. With research into cryptids. A lot of the people who have been doing this for a very long time, they have their ideals they hold on to still. And if you try and come at them with a new theory or a new research, they automatically just miss it. And they're not taking into acknowledgement some of these guys who are actually out there trying to do legitimate, unfunded, non-televised research into a lot of these cryptids. And I think, it's a mindset that goes on, and it could go into a lot of things, into where the world's not, they have this ideal already set in place where, remember the longest time, apes were bad. Bigfoot's an ape. Dogman can't be real. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I agree.
Here. Yeah.
I think we're so used to our television shows, you can solve a crime in an hour on TV, but it takes a long time in reality. And I think that's why cryptid shows don't they did well originally, but I don't think they do well now, is just because people are like, well, I watched Finding Bigfoot for a whole long. They never found Bigfoot. No, you've got 30 people in the woods with cameras and everything else. Bigfoot is not going to be within 50 miles of you because you're making too much noise.
Right.
Unless they're behind you watching the humans be stupid, and wander through the woods. But, now I watched that with my children, which was fun. And I've met those people, and they're serious and they're good folks. And I love the evidence gathering of it. I know that, they're not going to walk up, come around the corner, and there's Harry from Harry and the Hendersons, waving and, hey, look, we found Bigfoot. That's not going to happen. But there are shows out there, and why I listen to podcasts, and when you can get past the people who are faking their stuff, when you get to the people who really have seen something, that's when it gets good. When you get some old boy from Alabama who's hunted his entire life and came across something, now he don't hunt no more, and when he talks about it, he gets a quiver in his voice. That's the guy that I'm going to listen to.
Right. And that dovetails off of what Eric was saying before we started the recording.
Right.
If when you're talking to somebody and they have that real visceral reaction that makes them emotional, that was the word that Eric used, was an emotional reaction, then there's this person at least believes what they saw.
And when when you see somebody who looks off away from you when they break eye contact,
right,
and they're talking about their experience, and their eyes are darting around, and you can see that they're not only relaying their experience, but in their brain they are reliving what they saw.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
I draw a lot of cryptids. I draw a lot of cryptids, and when I do comic conventions, and I've had so many people walk up to me. My wife used to be a reporter, and now she's a teacher, and she didn't believe, but over the years, because of the people who, you believe in this stuff you draw? Yeah. Well, and then they start telling me a story. I've told Alan and Matthew, apparently in another life, I was a bartender, because people will spill their guts to me. I don't know nobody. Alan is witness.
I must have been one too.
Yeah, and but at the Bigfoot Jamboree, this guy, man, he stood and talked to me for 30 minutes, telling me all these stories. Never met the man in my life, but they want to unburden themselves of this something that they saw that they can't figure out what it is. I don't know what it is. But I was having a conversation with my boss the other day. We were traveling back from on a work trip, and he's like, "You believe in all this stuff, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, do you believe in God?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "You ever seen him?" He said, "No." I said, "I ain't either." I said, "But I've never seen Bigfoot, but I have talked to so many people who have, and they don't know what that is either." I said, "So it's a belief, I think personally, I think that God knew that at one point we would think we were the biggest, baddest thing on the face of the earth, and He allowed things to continue along with us that would show us that we're not. And it's, you gotta, I've taught my children this, and I try this every day. You have to look at the world every day with awe. Mm-hmm. And because as soon as you think you know everything, God's going to smack you up by the back of the head and go, nope, because He does it to me all the time. But that's it. And it is, my wife has become a believer because of all these just people we don't know start telling us these stories, especially at like Cryptid Con in Kentucky and all that stuff. When you've got all these people who have recordings and pictures, and I saw this in the woods. I don't know what this is, you know, and they just want to know. It's like, and they, it's almost like they have to know, you know, and that's an amazing thing to be able to, that, you know, if they want to tell me their story, heck yeah, I'll sit and listen. You know, it ain't going to cost me nothing.
Right.
And it's, and then they're like, all right, man, I appreciate talking to you. Thanks a lot. And they walk off happy as they can be. And I sit there going, dang, what did they see? You know? And so that, well, I just add that into my artwork, you know?
Well, a good friend of mine, Eric, he came up with a really good theory about what you just described. And he said to where what we do in a lot of ways by allowing these folks to unburden themselves is we become, in a sense, sin eaters. Oh, I called you out, Eric.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, and so because we talked off air, months ago about how we deprogram when we get done doing an interview with somebody, and when if it's a really deep interview, we're in tune with their emotions on it, and it is a burden. It's where I know what Eric does. For me, when I get done with an interview, I'll finish up if it's 10:30 at night or 11 o'clock at night. I'm up for the next couple hours. I mean, I'm watching like cartoons, The Simpsons. Exactly. I have to get myself deprogrammed. Where Jacob will know, when he leaves, he'll be like, "Are you going to watch The Simpsons?" Like, I sure am. Yep. And I had one interview I did with Dylan, who runs Blade Media. He did the website for us and the logo. And I don't know what it was about that interview, but through the whole interview with him, and it didn't get a lot of views, which is weird. But it creeped me out. And I was down here in the tavern, and I had Willie the Skeleton down here. And it got done. I was packing everything up, off the phone with him. And I think I was on the phone with you, wasn't I? No, you could have been. I think you were in Vegas. Is it on the phone with you or Tommy? And I was completely creeped out and unnerved. I mean, I was thinking there was like something walking down the sidewalk towards the tavern.
Oh, yeah.
In the tavern. And I mean, it was, to where I'm not gonna lie. I got off the phone. I kind of stopped, said a little prayer. All right, whatever's here, but bounce out. And I know that and that tied into, and I remember Eric saying that to me, because he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. We do become sin eaters, and we are hearing these. Our shows aren't, hey, we're going to talk about, better way of farming today. We're going to talk about a better way to invest your money. I mean, we're talking to people who've had, encounters that are deeply moving to them, who left some sort of mental, left a mental scar on them. And when they open up and you can hear it in their voice, and you can hear their voice fluctuation of what they're expressing. And like you said, right there at the convention, that guy had to do a mental dump to somebody who's not going to make fun of him, who's going to believe him, and that's all he wanted. Yeah. At the Elks Lodge, when I was going down there last year, everybody knew what I was doing, everybody was into it, and they were teasing me about it, and they were cracking jokes about it. But there'd be like almost every night there'd be somebody walk over, one of these hunters, and they go, "Hey, I saw something."
Yeah. And
they would spend about 10, 15 minutes telling me what happened, and they would just kind of wander off, and they're like, they feel better knowing someone's going to believe them.
And that's what made my wife a believer is everybody, their stories started sounding like they've all seen the same thing. And she's like, this is weird. And I'm like, well, yeah. It is, but she's like, it kind of gets in the same vibe of, I saw that and it was this like this, and we don't know what it was. And stuff like that. And so now she believes that there's something out there, but, to her reporter mind, these people validated what I was saying has been real all the time. And of course, she found out a long time ago that don't believe anything I've ever said. So, but it's one of the it's a curse and it's a blessing at the same time, because there's lots of times, and Alan has witnessed this when he's gone with me to conventions, of just people just walking up going, and just start spilling their guts. He goes, "Do you know them?" I said, "Nope, never seen them before in my life."
Yeah. But I think as Eric, just in the short time that speaking with you, and then knowing these other gentlemen, there takes a level of empathy, for people to tell us things like that. So there's that people can sense that, hey, we may be direct with you, but we're not going to belittle you. We're empathetic to what you're doing. But so I think they pick up on it on a visceral level. They can pick up, hey, this person is safe to speak to about this, and it's just going to maybe, if not help me try to figure it out, at least like you said, unburden, so I can go, hey, at least I've gotten it out. I've talked to somebody who's not going to shun me anymore. Because being a believer in the paranormal and having certain experiences myself, there's people that I attempted to over the years to have a conversation. Let's have a logical conversation about this. Shut it down or ridicule. So, you kind of gravitate toward the people who are willing to have a logical conversation to say, hey, what was it? What does it mean? How do you fit this into your worldview? And how does this affect the way you're going to live your life from that moment on?
All right.
Can we get deep? Can we get deep now?
Let's go deep.
Well,
let's go deep.
Because you bring up a couple of things, and empathy is one. So having empathy for somebody and being empathic is they kind of go hand in hand, but they're distinctively different.
I agree,
in my opinion. And this kind of, I guess, might be a cautionary tale to some extent. So before we started recording, I told you that it had been some time since I've released an episode. And there were a number of reasons behind that. And one, we talked about before we were recording. I don't know that we want to necessarily get into that aspect of it. But to kind of hedge into that a little bit. I think a lot of people that come onto shows like mine and yours, Matt, will have had an experience. And that experience left a mark on them, and they want other people to hear them, and they want people to believe them. But they run into the same problem. People are rolling their eyes, or they're being dismissive, or they're, so I think there's some segment of people who have an experience, and it's a legitimate experience, but in order to get people to pay attention to them or listen to them and maybe consider that this actually did happen, they might go out on a limb and maybe kind of extend that story a little bit by adding to it. To me, some of my favorite episodes have been one. She's actually my dog groomer. Her and her husband and her kids, they go up into the upper, way up north in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. They've never seen anything, but they've had a couple of experiences that make you think that they were in the area of a Sasquatch, because many of what their experiences resonate with things that I've heard multiple times in other conversations or other accounts that I've read. But they didn't embellish, and they didn't add on to anything. I would rather have a story where somebody had something inexplicable happen no good conversation or no good explanation for it. And throughout the course of conversation, you're still left at the end of it saying, it sounds like it could be what if, rather than being, oh yeah, it was at least 9 feet tall and it was standing there and it was looking at me and its eyes were glowing and it was blinking and it was swinging back and forth. And then it just turned around and it walked into a portal. Okay.
Portals.
You know, and you know, I'm going to bring up Todd Standing because, you know, he is such a controversial figure in Bigfootery. I think he falls into that category, which is, I think he has had an experience. Maybe he's had a couple of experiences that were legitimate. But if you ever listen to him on whatever show he's on, or whether it's his own production, he is so dramatically possessive of this topic. And he is so imbued with this passion for this topic. He wants people to believe. So I think there may be a point where he may have done some things to try to further put this in front of people to take a closer look at, to try to sway them into believing, because he truly believes that he's had an experience, but now he's put himself in a position where some of his stuff that he's released is kind of questionable.
It's controversial now. Didn't he just sue the Game of Fish?
He may have.
I think so. Hey, pull that up since you're on your phone over there. Yeah, Todd Standing. I think he just sued. I think I just read an article recently where he sued, I want to say, the Game of Fish Commission, the U.S., not acknowledging of Sasquatch. And then I know another lady, she sued in California recently as well for not taking her encounter seriously or something along those lines. So he's pulling that up right now. But you're right on the Todd Standing thing. And also on the interviews. I had a lady that I met at the town hall meeting I did up in Harrison back in September. And I had her on the show. And she doesn't know what happened. She doesn't know, a belief in Bigfoot. They moved up to Harrison. And they had some weird things that were happening on their property. And I in with other accounts, like you had said, with the groomers. And my favorite part was slap the house.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the squirrel feeder being tossed out in the yard. And she mentioned that one in passing. And I went, do you think that maybe it's doing that? There's no other reason for this feeder to be thrown across your yard. And she never put 2 and 2 together. And that was one of my favorite ones as well. Because it wasn't, like you said, 9 feet tall and glaring at me and glowing eyes, and the fairies took it off into a portal.
Well, I have a theory of why Bigfoot likes to harass Sasquatch, whatever. And my theory is that they're teenagers and they're bored. Just like human teenagers, they ain't got nothing to do. They're bored. They're out with their friends. Hey, let's see if we can scare these humans, or let's see how close you can get to the car, without getting killed.
Same reason you have a bunch of deer that decide to run out in front of your car just to see if they can make it.
Hey, real quick, I got to interject real quick.
Go
so the Todd Standing thing was in 2018. And so I stand corrected on that one. I don't want to put any misinformation out there. It was 2018, as reported by the BBC and CBC. Canadian court has dismissed a Bigfoot believers lawsuit claiming British Columbia failed in its duty to recognize that Sasquatch exists. So that was 2018. Yeah. So
and that kind of that right there kind of gets us to something that Eric was saying offline too. Is for folks like us who we're doing our own layman's investigation into whatever it is we're looking into, and we approach it. Not everybody who does what we do approaches it with the right frame of mind. Listen, we're truly investigators. Even some of those folks who say I'm a paranormal investigator, they don't go in with that whole right concept of of checking off the boxes of going, okay, can I disprove this, like we were talking earlier. But where I want to go with something that Eric said earlier is, how do you put yourself when we're in this kind of business? How do we put ourselves in a situation where our credibility stands, no matter who we're interviewing? Well, just because I'm interviewing, crazy Matthew and Jacob, and they sound like they're insane, maybe they did dropped a couple of gummies before they came on my show. That doesn't mean I believe what you're talking about. I'm trying to hang out
with us at the tavern.
Right. I'm trying to engage you in a conversation, and we do have to be entertaining too. For me, the most entertaining thing I can be is be truthful when I'm going there. But sometimes, sometimes it may be somebody who, like you say, you guys have experienced it more than I have. You're in it now. You can't get out of it. You're in this conversation. This person doesn't seem to be truthful. But it's what you do say on your other shows where you go, this I believe, or this I think has merit, and you don't have to necessarily subscribe to what this whack job is saying here. But when your audience as a whole, when they look at you as a whole, they go, you know what, the Drunken Cryptids, they're entertaining, but they also do take us deep. And where I'm going with this thought is there's a guy that I've been listening to for 12 years now on YouTube, and he goes all over the place. Paranormal, cryptid, conspiracy theories, all that. Rarely does he say, I think there's merit to this. So when he does, he's really, when he says, hey, I give merit to this, you have to go, okay, this dude knows what he's talking about. And even if he's wrong, he's right more than he's wrong. So it brings credibility to his show. That's why I've been there for 12 years with listening to his show. So I think as we have talked offline about how do we continue to go forward in our respective formats and how do we retain that credibility? Well, I think that's it. You still have the folks on, you still tell the stories, but when you do drop what you believe, I guess you pick and choose when you want to say this is something that I'm latching on to, because I do enjoy the occasional whack job interview. I prefer the ones that seem more realistic. My logical brain wants to hear that, but I do like it every now and then when I'm listening to one of you guys and I'm like, dude, they stepped into the nut house.
Well, I mean, there's like Matt knows this about me, and anybody who has listened to me for any length of time, it's like my frame of questions will change. If you have led me down a path of fuckery, then I'm going to remain respectful, and even though the show's called Uncomfortable, I'm not going to do anything to try to make you uncomfortable, but I will ask you questions. I will ask you questions that are designed on the fly to try to walk you into a corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can walk yourself out of it, good on you. If you can't, my listeners are smart enough to recognize that they were not able to walk out of that corner.
Right.
And
Same.
And I had to step back and let them come out of the corner. In years ago, when I first started doing this, I had a conversation with Shannon LeGros from Into the Fray, and I posed this very dilemma about if I not firmly in belief of this person's experience, if I think they're manufacturing it just for shits and giggles to get their 15 minutes of fame or whatever. And she said to me, she's like, we are not the barometer. We being us, the podcast hosts, are not the barometer for truth. That's up to the listener. And I appreciated that advice, but that gave me some insight to I don't like doing that.
Yeah, man, I feel you because my brain goes, you said something, let's get to the heart of it and see if it's BS or not, right?
Yeah. And if it is, then I feel like a responsibility to put out at the beginning of an episode, this is This is being released for entertainment purposes only, and then that is, going to affect some segment of my listener base, because unfortunately there's some people out there that believe everything that's put in front of them,
Right.
and then there's other that are very critical thinking. And I think my audience is a very smart audience. I think the people that listen to me are very, I've had a lot of interaction with them via, email or messages and stuff like that. And they all seem to be a very smart and discerning group of people, but there are people out there who will just believe anything that you put in front of them, so, Matt suggested that, or didn't suggest, but said that, my coming back into the fold of doing shows every week, I'm going to be moving more towards my first two loves, which were UFOs and Bigfoot. I have had a number of paranormal experiences, and much of that experience was related to the passing of my dad. I now currently live in the house that I grew up in, and this was the home that for about 9 or 10 months I had experiences with my dad. And so, Chris, you earlier you were talking about, belief in God, and do you believe in God even though you haven't seen him or anything? And I've been criticized to some extent about my belief. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus.
Right.
But I've been, I'm not going to say attacked, but I've been criticized by Christians who have said that by entertaining the things that I entertain, that I'm bad.
Right.
And, and I disagree, and back to what Chris was saying, I mean, there's a segment of the population that believes everything is either of good or evil. There is no in between. I think my personal belief is, and I could be wrong, I probably am wrong, I think we're all wrong to some extent.
Yeah.
But I think there are things that fall in between good and evil. Some may lean towards more the good, some may lean towards the bad, some may be completely neutral. But I guess the point that I'm getting at is, and why I have decided to start to move away from the paranormal aspects of it, is I had the experiences I had with my after the passing of my dad. And then it was very interesting to me. I wasn't obsessed with it. It wasn't like I was, just holding on to it and wanted more experiences. It wasn't that. But there was some segment of myself that was like, I want to talk to people who have had experiences like me.
Right.
And I wanted to continue to have some experiences that would lead me down the path of this wasn't just a one-off. It wasn't just because this is where my head was at this point in time. Is it something that can be replicated? And I proved that to myself. I've, as far as the paranormal, as far as the spiritual aspects of things being able to reach out from beyond life, I am firmly convinced. Nobody is going to be able to sit there in front of me and convince me that doesn't happen, because it did happen. And I'm a very smart man. I am not prone to hallucinations. I'm not prone to making up foolish stories or manufacturing shit. So for that, I am completely good on that aspect of it. It was very interesting for me to talk to people who were having experiences or having things in their house or having things that were maybe like negative or oppressive in their life. But there are strings attached to those subjects. And when you're dealing with somebody who is of the mindset that they really enjoy it, it makes them feel special that these things are happening. They want to continue to have it happen. they become obsessed with one aspect or another, whether it's going after EVPs or whether they get obsessed with, going into trying to get touched or something like that. When you start talking to people who are not actively trying to remove that from their life, there are strings attached, and those strings can reach out and cause issues with other people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you were talking about? I have been accused of the same thing. Of how can you say that you're a Christian and you are interested in all these things? And I've been interested in them since grade school. There's a book called 13 Tennessee Ghosts, and I think I was the one that checked it out at our library the most. I read that thing.
I remember that one.
But the way I look at it is this: if you're a football coach or a coach of any team, you watch videos of the other team to see how they play.
Yep, been there.
And that's how I see this. It's a study on how's the other team going to play this,
Mm-hmm.
and what's like, you can't make anybody believe in what you believe in.
Right.
You can't make anybody. People have asked me, how do you explain? How do you believe in God when you can't see Him? How do you believe in it? I'm like, well, I can give you examples of what has happened and how I feel. And do I know what a ghost is? No. Do I know what Bigfoot is? No. Do I know what, the Loch Ness Monster is? No. But it's the wonder.
Yeah. I think that's
it's
it.
the wonder of it,
right.
that this stuff is here. And instead of just saying, I don't know and I ain't going to do anything about it. And I think and I'll shut up after this, I promise. One, I believe that people have been brainwashed into, you have to be a nice person, you have to fit in this little box, and everything has to fit in your little box. And if it doesn't fit in your little box, then you don't need to deal with it. And I'm like, I'm the guy that I'll buy a vintage toy and take it out of the box because I have to have it in my hand. And I'm the guy that wants to take crap out the box and go, how does this work? How does it do that? Right. What's it going to do? And so that's how I look at it. And I have, fortunately, by the grace of God, found a wife who is the same way. And, and my children are kind of the same way. So we have had some interesting conversations and some interesting things happen. But I'm with you on, it's people can just say some of the weirdest crap. And here I am, or let's just say the most open-minded people are always really the most closed-minded. I'm just like, hey, whatever it is, I'm cool with it. As long as it don't try to come in my house, we're good. Bigfoot can hang outside my front door all day long, as long as he stays outside my front door. Right. So yeah. And then, okay, I'm off my soapbox. So
well, oh my God, so many roads.
Right.
I know. Well, let me jump in there real quick, Eric. Yeah, let me jump in there real quick because I do want to tie in with what Eric was just talking about. The strings attached. I was in a relationship with somebody who firmly did have, into this stuff and didn't seem really interested in trying to get rid of it. It created a nightmare in a lot of ways in our relationship and stuff. And when we split up, it seemed like my whole entire house just felt like it just lightened up and everything was, there. And I can testify to having weird things happen, with that person around. I'm not going to name drop anything at all. I'm not going to do that to them. But it's, as Eric was saying, though, I do think that when it comes to the paranormal stuff, a lot of people do claim this as an identity. They make that's who they are, and they want to utilize it, and they play on it so well. And and they don't want to get rid of it. And those are people, where it's like I can't help you at all.
Right.
I was talking to a lady down in southern Arkansas, and she was like, I need help. And I kept going. She was sending me audio clips of weird stuff. And I was like, I'm not going down there at all. I'm not an exorcist. I'm not. I'm no way. And I kept telling her, hey, get a hold of your pastor, get a hold of your priest, get a hold of all this stuff. And you need that kind of help. And on the Christian topic, I get called out all the time on that one as well. How can you be a Christian and believe in all this stuff? And it's to the
how
point
can you
where
not be? How can you not?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
the Bible's full of paranormal.
You're right, but you got to look at too, though. A lot of Christians, they're only going. Okay, I sat down with a minister about 2.5 years ago, and I said, hey, look, I want to talk to you about the Bible. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about the Old Testament. Let's go into Genesis. And he looked me in the eye and he goes, I just covered Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And I went, man, our conversation's done.
Wow.
I appreciate your time.
Well,
and that's the thing to where a lot of churches focus on that instead of digging deep into
I can tell you
book.
this. Right. I'd tell you this. My son and I have these conversations all the time. So I'm going to try to tie a couple of things together. Like, Eric, you're talking about the strings attached, when you want to do something. I think sometimes those strings get attached even when you don't want them. For example, my ex-wife, she struggled with addiction. The deeper she got into addiction, the more those strings were pulled on by dark forces, and strange things started happening in the house. I mean, and it was a really scary time. So there's the connection there with your strings. So that gets me to the point where I'm sitting in a very Americanized church, a Protestant church. I'm sitting, and there's probably 40 people sitting in this one particular room. I'm a musician, so I played in the worship band. So I'm sitting back there with all the musicians, and we're talking, and nobody knew what I'd been going through. I was trying to process this too. I'm seeing weird things. My wife is deep in this in addiction. There's darkness in my house. There's things happening in my house that is clearly spiritual. And somebody said something, and I don't remember how we got in, but I said, I still believe that there are spirits and demon possession. They looked at me like I had spoken crazy talk, right? None of them believed in modern day demon possession. And I'm like, so I had this deep conversation. I was trying to start a deep conversation, and they were they were literally, Alan, come on, this is the 21st century. And I'm like, if Jesus was casting out demons, if his apostles and disciples were casting out demons, that just all stopped? That just stopped? So there's no longer a deep spiritual realm that we have to be aware of? Well, how do you get around, hey, for we wrestle not against, flesh and blood, but the spirits and principalities of darkness. So I was trying to hit them with scripture going, no, nothing's changed. It's just our mindset has changed and we don't want to accept it. So I was standing in the sanctuary one day with a pastor, and we were having a conversation about the spirit realm and how it is still influencing us today, but we just refuse to accept it. And he said, I love you, brother, but you're a whack job. Okay.
Wow.
So now let's that's the Americanized church. That's the Western church. Now my son has been rejecting the American church. So he started looking into orthodoxy. Right? The Orthodox church. Those dudes, man, he came home the other day and he says, hey, did you know that Father Kevin performed an exorcism? And I'm like, wow. What I'm getting at here is there are Christians. There is, the American church has been so watered down, it doesn't want to believe it. It's now it's a coaching system, be your best, and, name it, claim it. But there is still Christianity, real Christianity out there that understands we're in constant spiritual warfare. And yes, we have authority to fight that constant spiritual warfare.
Yep,
right? But the problem is it's become such a narrow slice of that belief system that you have to seek out people who understand that we're in a battle.
What is it? Satan's biggest
Right.
Satan's biggest trick is that he has made everybody believe that he didn't exist.
That's right.
And all these people don't they think that all that stuff stories.
Yep.
And it ain't, you know, but and there's so many things out there, so many of these paranormal stories now that everything's a demon.
Yeah.
Everything's a demon. You know, and I'm like, really?
I'm learning,
You know,
I'm learning Jacob right now because Jacob, where I can, Jacob's theory is, you know, and so Jacob has that theory where everything's a demon, and I don't want to throw you on the bus, but I'm going to.
Right.
I wasn't talking about Jacob.
Oh, I will. I am. I will. I mean, because and you're absolutely right. You know, it again, exactly. It's what a lot of the churches are doing now. Where if it is bad, everything paranormal is demonic. Everything is, it's demonic. And I was actually started to see a young lady in July, or late June, I should say, and she struggled with what I do, and with the show and everything. To where she's like, you're gonna manifest these cryptids. And I was like, I hope I do. I mean, I'll be famous, and we're gonna have Bigfoot right here in the backyard.
Well, Bigfoot is your bartender, so
Yeah.
Gotta love Lloyd. But and that's the thing, and you're right. And I don't want to bash, churches. A lot of churches have done a lot of good for a lot of people who needed it.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
I'm not a churchgoer. I have my personal beliefs, in God, in Jesus, and I am a Christian, and I do, and I research the Bible and I read the Bible and I pray. I do a lot of praying. I'll tell you that. When we do go on the paranormal stuff, I'll pray before and I'll pray afterward. To arm myself against whatever is going to be out there, because like you said, I'm not bringing it home. So where I try, with Eric, I do try and cut away from a lot of the paranormal stuff as well. I am doing an investigation this week at an Elsel that's allegedly haunted. I'm going to go check it out and see it, because I'm still fascinated by this topic to get answers on it, and I don't know. And I may have to switch phones real quick, so you may lose me, but we're going to jump right back in. Yeah, but we'll be all
okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Eric.
Oh,
go ahead.
I'm about to lose my phone.
Okay.
Did you want to switch out?
I don't think we're going to be able to switch out on this phone.
No, we can, but we just can't plug it up to the system.
Why? We can't plug it into here?
No, because I don't got
an iPhone. Yeah, it's just adapter.
Let me go look at my breakfast.
You better hurry up. Yeah, So what's funny is, as we were talking about all this stuff, my phone battery was just slowly dropping. I was going, what is going on?
Uh-oh.
So
somebody's visiting the tavern.
My issue here, and this is, I think, what I get take some flack for, is, a rough estimate of distinct religions currently in the world today. Take a guess. How many?
Oh gosh.
Take a guess.
Yeah.
100.
10,000.
Yeah.
Now,
Nuts.
the majority of the world population, the majority of the global population, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Now you take a look at those four religions, distinctively different in almost every way.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look into those religions, there are very similar occurrences that are related in our Bible, flood events, different things like that seem to populate those religions as well. So who's right? Who's right? Who's wrong? I said this early on. We are all wrong. We're all wrong. None of us know.
No, nobody's expert.
I think in my heart of hearts, here's where I kind of pull everything in together, is that my problem with speaking with people who have had a spiritual or paranormal experience, why I'm moving away from that is because depending on how you grew up, depending on the religion that you were raised in, depending on the distinctively the slightly one-off, whether you were, you know, more I don't even know the right word, you know, some Christian churches tend to lean a little more towards this, and some seem to lean a little more towards this. And then you've got some that, you know, it's okay to be married. You got some that it's not okay to be married. I was born and raised Catholic. You know, priests can't get married, right? You know, I mean, why the hell would you impose something like that on somebody? It's going to make you a holier person if you abstain from a life with a woman and enjoy your having a family and all that stuff. It seems ridiculous. At some point, it's going to get to you. You know, after 30 years of being alone and only dedicated to God, it seems like it's going to get to you. So my desire to move away from talking to people about this stuff is because there are so many variables within that person's life of how they react to the experience that they had. Now, you know, if somebody has X, Y, Z happen in their Christian faith, they're going to say that it was demonic. Whereas somebody in a different religion is going to be, maybe it wasn't quite so dramatic as that. You know, maybe it was a sign from, you know, who's wrong, who's right plays an important part in how do we have a conversation about it. And I found myself so many times throughout these conversations where, because of my beliefs and because of how I view God and what he means in my life, I want to disagree with that person. But do I have the right to disagree with it? Because that's the way they don't know any different. That's the way they were raised, and that's the belief system that they were a part of. You know, so it's just gotten, you know, I want to move back to Bigfoot and UFOs because I've already proven what I needed to prove to myself about the paranormal aspect of things.
That's cool.
And at least with Bigfoot and UFOs, there's a little bit of a science-ish wall that we can lean against, even though we don't have a body, even though there's not one on a slab, even though we don't have, you know, DNA proof. There is a ton of experiences that are all relatable.
Yep.
People are experiencing the same thing and walking away from these things with the same thoughts, as opposed to the paranormal stuff. Because with that, depending on how you were raised, you know, I mean, I've talked to people who have been, you know, like their dad was a pastor. And then as they grow up and they become an adult, they fell away from the church. Well, you know, it makes sense. If you had that shoved down your face, down your mouth, down your throat every day of your life while you're growing up, at some point you're going to get tired of it. And it's a natural progression that you're going to move away from it. You're probably going to move back to it at some point in your life. But, you know, and you know, so many times when I talk to somebody like that, they feel like they're under a demonic attack because they've moved away from religion. And okay, that might be a case. Or maybe it's something good that's trying to push you back into wanting to be involved in it again. Maybe it's not something bad. Maybe it's kind of scaring you back onto the right road, or, you know, I mean, maybe it's not. So, you know, there's just so much about that.
People, when you're talking to folks like that, I see what you're saying. I'm always willing to engage somebody in a theological conversation as long as you can try to approach it from an intellectual point of view. But when you get into theology, people are so easily ticked off. So I try
yeah.
to, I try to pick
100%.
and choose. You can tell pretty quick if this is going to be an interesting theological conversation that's going to broaden both horizons, and you can tell immediately if no, I don't want to go down that road with this person at this point because they're closed off or not willing or whatever. So I agree with that. So now,
Well,
one of the things I
like
find
Larry Correa says, flexible minds.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about the American church. We've talked about the American medical system. We've talked about a lot of things. So now, I think, and we've superficially touched on those, which I think would be awesome at some other point for us to go a little deeper in some of those. But one of the things that Eric keeps bringing up is obviously Bigfoot and UFOs. I've never had a Bigfoot experience. I've had cryptid experience, never a Bigfoot experience, but I've had 2 UFO experiences that I've had a couple of others that maybe, I don't know, but 2 that I'm pretty settled on were either some sort of possible UFO. So I'm just curious about the rest of you guys. Yeah, because I don't think, Chris, I know you've had a UFO experience. But I don't know, Matthew, if you and Jacob have ever had a UFO experience.
Nope, never had a UFO experience that I know of. I just, like I said, I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with the lady who runs the Missouri chapter of MUFON, and I was like, I've never had a UFO experience at all. But you should get your experience over on Eric's show.
Yeah. Because I'd even at one point, I've more than once thought about, joining MUFON just so I could get out there and investigate, use that investigative ability that I have to look at things locally. But then I figured, it's more fun just doing it, picking and choosing what I want to investigate. But anyway, so Eric, have you had a UFO experience?
Yeah. So back when I was 12 or 13, long story short, I've told this a bunch of times, and I'm sure people who have heard me are probably like, oh, fuck, here he goes again. 12 or 13, I'm at home watching, on a Friday night, watching Creature Feature out of Chicago, Illinois, on our cable. And about 10:30, 11:15 at night, my grandma is babysitting for me, and my parents are out. Summer night, doors open, windows are open, dark outside, and all of a sudden, my entire neighborhood lights up brighter than the brightest day.
Wow.
Just like that. And, I heard a sound of we're very close to South Bend. At the time, it was South Bend Regional. Now it's South Bend International Airport. So we were always kind of in the flight path of planes coming into land. So I heard this plane going overhead, but it just seemed to be going and going and going and going and going and going. It wasn't getting any quieter. It wasn't getting any louder. It just seemed like it was like overhead. And the neighborhood, it lights up, and like I never saw anything, but everywhere I looked out my picture window, again, of this very same house, it was so bright outside that it finally struck me that nothing was leaving a shadow. Like trees weren't leaving a shadow. The cars weren't leaving a shadow. I remember looking across the street at Mr. Dale's backyard, between the 2 houses directly across from me. And I could see the telephone pole with the transformer, which was behind a big oak tree. And I remember seeing like underneath the under canopy of the oak tree, like the part that would be the shadowy part of the leaves, if it was during a sunny day, you could even see inside of that. You could see the backs of the leaves and everything.
Wow.
And I looked to the other side of that house, and in between those 2 houses, I could see the back the house of my good buddy that lived on the other side of the block. And unfortunately, his mom was an alcoholic. And one night, she had gotten drunk and ran out of booze and decided to go to the store to get some more. Well, instead of putting the car in reverse, she put it in drive, and she drove out through the back of the garage into the backyard. And it was so bright that I could actually see the replaced aluminum siding on the back of the garage. I could see the difference in the color from the old and the new where they repaired that. And then, my grandma, I'm like, Grandma, what's going on? She goes, oh, get away from the window, honey. It's probably just a storm. And I was like, storm? It's not lightning. It's not storming. It's not raining. It's not doing anything. I mean, it's just bright outside. And I can't tell you how long this lasted. I mean, based on my memory of all the things that I was able to take in visually, it seemed like it went on for quite a while.
Right.
Minutes. But again, I couldn't tell you how long it lasted. She got up out of the chair. She walked over to me. I had been laying down on the floor in a prone position watching TV with my hands under my elbows or under my chin. She got up, she grabbed me by the arm, and she started pulling me away by my right arm away from the picture window. And as she did, I turned, and just like that, everything went back to being dark. And I was looking at the dusk to dawn light post that was 2 houses down from me, the street light, and it just started to flicker like it was coming back on. So whatever happened, it was bright enough to shut that light off. And then as soon as it went back to being black, that light started flickering to come back on.
Wow.
Next morning I got up, I was super excited, went out into the kitchen. My grandmother lived in what is now my studio. After my dad's dad passed, we had built onto the house for her to live with us. And I got up the next morning, Saturday. My parents are sitting at the kitchen table with my grandma. All of them are smoking cigarettes and drinking their coffee first thing in the morning. And I just could not fucking wait to tell them about what happened the night before. And so I'm going on and on and on about it. And I looked over at my grandma and I'm like, tell him, Grandma, tell him. And she's like, oh, I don't know, honey. I don't know. And I can remember being so pissed. I loved that woman. She was the greatest grandma anybody could ever want. And I was so pissed at her for fucking throwing me under the bus and not telling them what she saw, that I was like, oh, I was just beside myself. The next day is Sunday. That is the only day my mom and dad ever got the newspaper because they were cheap. And that's when the grocery ads came out in the local newspaper. So Sunday, late morning, I was walking out of the kitchen, going down the hallway to my bedroom, and my dad says, hey kid, here's your fucking UFO story. And I was like, what? And in the South Bend Tribune, in a little 4 or 5 sentence byline, a little article, says residents of Hollyhock Road, just south of the state line, reported seeing lights in the sky above Claffey's Field. So the street right outside of my neighborhood is Hollyhock Road. I am just south of the state line of Michigan in Indiana. And Claffey's Field was directly across from our neighborhood. And that was the field that all of the neighborhood kids would go play football or hot box or, hide and seek or tag or however. I mean, we played there for years and years and years. So the residents that were facing due east, looking at Claffey's Field, saw lights above that on Friday night. So, wow. I mean, cool. That's like right there. I never saw a craft. I never saw what the source of the light was. When I looked out, it was obvious that the light source was coming from above the eaves trough of the house, because you could see a slight glow, almost like if you had a bunch of Christmas lights hanging from your gutter. Mm-hmm. You could just see the glow of the light. You couldn't see a light bulb or anything. You could just see like a little glow of it. But I can remember looking, when I looked to the right-hand side of the picture window, I can remember seeing past everything that was lit up and still seeing dark sky back behind,
Hmm.
which was really fucking weird. So what that was, I have no idea. I mean, I assume it was something like that. But most recently, and Matt can attest to this, because he was aside from my son, he was the second person that I contacted about this. It was a Saturday. It was about 6:05, I believe, in the evening. Nice and sunny, beautiful day, blue sky. And I look out my picture window and I see these fucking balloons going by in the sky, and they're white. And there's like, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at the video again, but there's like 15 or 16 of them, maybe, you know, a couple of grouped here, a couple of grouped there, a couple kind of off by themselves. And they're going across the neighborhood. Hard to put a height on them, you know, how many feet up, I don't know. They weren't particularly close, but I could still see them well. Had my phone in my hand. I'd been texting somebody. I think I was texting my girlfriend. So I flipped to the camera. I walked outside and I hit video, and I started videoing these moving across my neighborhood. They passed behind some trees, and then they came back into a clearing between two trees, and then they moved on. Well, there were a couple of them that were moving kind of strangely, in that, like, you had one that was here and then one that was beside it, but throughout the course of it moving, this one kind of was rotating around the other one, but there were still 4 or 5 others that were very close that weren't mimicking that. It wasn't like there were differing jet streams or wind velocities. You know, they were all kind of staying together, but you had a couple that were kind of twirling around each other, and it was fucking odd, but they looked like round white balloons. I couldn't see any strings on them. I couldn't see any ribbons. I couldn't see any writing on them, like, you know, happy birthday or happy fucking wedding or anything like that. And about 30 minutes later, I hear a helicopter. And I walked outside, and I love the sound of helicopters. I live very close to the University of Notre Dame football stadium. So whenever they have flyovers, you know, and it was a Saturday, and it was too early in the season for a football game, but I thought, you know, maybe there were, I didn't know. I was like, so I just went outside, and due east of my neighborhood, a good distance, I see one of those big dual a
Chinook.
Yes. And it's going from north to south. And I was like, that's interesting. I send Matt the video. And was it a day later?
I want to say, no, the helicopter, you sent me the black helicopter one that day.
That was that day.
Yeah, because Chris, I
Yes.
said, you figure out I couldn't figure it out. So I sent to you, Chris, that picture, remember?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Chris,
So
the
then,
one by the helicopter.
yeah. So later that day, we have a military black helicopter with both doors open and personnel sitting with their legs out on the strut in the gunner door on both sides. And it flies directly in front of my house into about the middle of my neighborhood, kind of does a U-ey, comes back and flies back over my house. And I got video of that. And then I got some still pictures of it where I was actually able to pull a frame out of the video that was very, very clear. And it's quite obviously unmarked, and it's very, very dark. It is. If it's not black, I don't know what the fuck color it is, because there was nothing on it. you know, and then I send that to Matt, and Matt ends up sending it to
Chris.
This was the guy that told you what kind it was.
Yep.
So I had the big Chinook. Then I had, I forget what kind that was. You said
it's
was
some kind of scout helicopter.
And then the next day, I went to the grocery store, got home, parked my car in the driveway, had an armful of groceries walking into the garage, and I heard a fucking helicopter again. I fumbled with getting to the door open and putting the grocery bags inside the doorway, and then walked back out. And by that time, I could not see the helicopter. I don't know if it had gone back behind me. I don't know. But I mean, those balloons, I'm going to call them balloons because I don't know what else. I mean, it was a Saturday evening, could have been a wedding, but then to have the presence of military helicopters, and then my dog groomer who had the experience up in the UP, I had told her about it, and I went to take my dog there, and it was like 2 or 3 weeks later. She said, "Hey, did you ever see that the Facebook post? It had something to do with Mishawaka, Indiana." And I said, "No, I don't follow Mishawaka on Facebook." And she said, "Well, there were a bunch of people that were in there talking about black helicopters that were flying around for several days." And she's like, "When I went back and looked at the post, it lined up with the pictures that you sent me of the balloons." So,
yeah, I find it odd that whatever those were, I mean, you could say, okay, well, it's just balloons. Then why the black helicopters? You know, so clearly there's something more to it than just that.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Well,
more times, go ahead.
No, it was a training exercise that's dealing with swamp gas and Venus. So
Right.
I'm thinking it's probably more likely ass gas and Uranus.
Right. So
anyway,
the question I have is you know, there's many different types of, you know, UFOs, and I know now everybody wants to call them UAPs because they're getting ready to disclose to us what we've all known for a long time. But so they're just trying to change that narrative a bit. But you know, there's various types, but you know, typically the saucer shape, the wing shape, and the orb shape. That's the ones that I've had encounter with, is the orb shape with the bright light. So what do you think it is? I'm just asking a silly question here. What's the deal with bright lights and aliens? I mean, why are they always trying to blind us?
well, my theory is that they are tourists. They come here. It's like going to Lion Country Safari. They fly through. They see what the pink monkeys are doing, and because any intelligent life wouldn't come here because we have all our weapons pointed at each other. And so, you know, if you can take somebody out because of the type of shoes they wear, I don't think any highly intelligent being would show up here to check things out. But, you know, I do think that it's a great tourist industry, you know, because the Earth is such an interesting place to visit, but you don't want to stay here.
Right. So I'll ask this question too.
Well, I gotta throw this in here real quick though. Why make yourself noticeable?
Okay,
that's where I was at. That's literally the question I was going to ask. We got about 20 minutes left in the recording, so I want to get to those types of questions. Why? That's exactly what I was going to ask, Eric.
Well, I have two theories on this one. I think, and this comes from a military mind. Okay, theory number one. All right, we have technology that we can see in the dark. We have night vision. We have thermals. We have a whole bunch. So we can run all black, no lights operations for the military. Okay, so when we travel, we go do things. We don't have our lights turned on. So, like you brought it up, why the lights on? If you're an invasion force, why are you going to come in at night with your lights on where everybody and their dog is going to be able to see you?
Right.
And I've been kicking around this idea for a long time. Ready? If we go into an area, let's say we're going to go invade people who use bows and arrows as a weapon, right? Are we going to care if we have our lights on?
No.
So you
No.
think it's
No.
an intimidation?
Either an intimidation or is a factor of overconfidence, to where their technology is so much superior than ours.
Show of force.
More
Yeah.
superior than ours, where they don't care. It's like they're not bothered about being sneaky. They're not trying to come in and black ops. They're not trying to come in and do intel runs in a way that we think of it as.
Right.
No, we're going to go in. We're going to go in dark. We're going to go in pitch black. We're going to, spy on the enemy, and then we're going to come back and report. These guys, they don't care. To an aspect that is an intimidation, it's I don't care. We're going to show up. We're going to wave at you, and then we're going to bounce out and get with our information that we have.
So, you can say since 1947, it's been classified as UFOs. Prior to that, because we've got documentation from the Middle Ages where there were lights in the sky. They called it something different. But let's just say we've had at least, say, a couple, say 400 or 500 years of quote unquote activity from another planet, another dimension, whatever you want it, because I feel they're from another dimension. But whatever they are, why have they not made their move yet? Why spend all this time just flashing us with lights and abducting us and doing experiments on us? At some point, you have to go, okay, we're an advanced species. If they are, we're an advanced species. We've got everything we need to know. Why not make your move? Why are we still having these quote unquote games?
I used to be under the impression that they were from outer space. Different planet, different galaxy, different universe, whatever.
Yeah, I used to too. I no longer believe that. I think they're interdimensional.
And I don't. I now, but I subscribe to part of the interdimensional, but I think they're originally from here.
Okay. Like time travel?
Sounds silly, but maybe time travel, maybe they exist in a plane with us outside of our perception, and they're able to cross into it. Maybe the times that we do see them is by accident.
Okay.
Maybe the conditions are just right, atmospheric or whatever. Maybe it's intentional. I don't know. But, the more prevalent it becomes with hearing about USOs, the submerged objects.
Yeah, the submerged stuff. Yeah.
Man, what better place to hide, right? I mean,
Right.
we know more. We know more about the moon than we do of our own oceans. And the planet's 70% water. I mean, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be the ocean. I mean, we have had ongoing lights above Lake Michigan, between Benton Harbor and Gary, Indiana, since the early 90s. I've got two charter captains that I'm talking to. I'll be interviewing with probably after Thanksgiving, that every morning when they're taking their charters out at 4:30 in the morning, they get 10 miles out and all of a sudden they start seeing the lights, and the lights are going up high. They're going down to the water and disappearing. They're not necessarily saying they see them entering the water, but they are going down low enough where they disappear. And then other times they see them where they just zip, zip, zip from, to the left and to the right. So, I mean, those things have been, the biggest thing back in March of 94 was when they had them on radar for over 2.5 hours, and they moved all the way from Muskegon down to St. Joe Benton Harbor area, which is 25-30 minutes from me. So it's interesting that those things are still ongoing.
Well, you mentioned, possible time travel. If you think about it, and so, and Alan, you brought it up earlier, not too long ago, 400 or 500 years ago, they're seeing these craft. They haven't changed in description.
Yeah.
Right.
At all. It's the same description to where, even the triangle ones, the Tic Tacs or, the saucer shape, they've all been the same. So, what if Eric is something where they are kind of, I do agree. They, now they're interdimensional. I was on the same page as a kid, thinking they were from, Uranus, but
Not for my anus.
if the shoe fits, I'm saying. But talk about probing, but it's the same craft. When I interviewed the MUFON lady, I brought that up. I said it's always the same style of craft, but now the triangles are now coming in more in the play that we're experiencing, especially down in Mexico, and Phoenix, all these other places. But it is. Think about it. I mean, the painting.
I think the triangles. I think they come from your buddies.
Yeah,
I'm thinking that's.
Yeah,
I think
agree.
that's military. Okay,
Because
I got something to piggyback on Eric. Okay, if they're interdimensional or extra dimensional, and we can see them in their craft coming in to our dimension, what if that's what ghosts are, or spirit, or shadow people?
Okay, now here you go. I'm gonna leave you with this because I gotta go. I got a guy showing up here shortly to pick up some stuff. But cool. I'm gonna leave you with this. So you take into consideration paranormal investigations. You take consideration of many of the things that you hear people talk about happening in the woods when they're having a Sasquatch or Bigfoot experience. And then I'm even going to go into going into a haunted house and things like that. So what do a lot of people report hearing in a haunted location when they feel that they're having contact with spirits?
Knocking?
What do people talk about hearing in the woods all the time when they think they're having a Sasquatch experience?
Interesting.
Tree knocks.
Interesting.
Electronic
or the
buzzing.
new thing.
Electronic humming or buzzing.
That people have said they hear like a door shut.
Yep. Mechanical sounds. Yep.
Yeah.
How many people have you heard talk about having a UFO experience and having a mechanical hum or machine sounding noises happening during their experience? Orbs.
Yeah.
Orbs of light. Orbs of light have been associated with extraterrestrials. They've been with UFO experiences. They're actually considered to be UFOs to some extent. You see orbs of light in the woods. I've seen orbs of light, a legitimate orb of light. I saw it manifest in front of me at a graveyard during a ghost investigation. A golf ball size blue ball with a white light halo around it that manifested for about 3 seconds at most. It popped into reality and it kind of went zip, zip, zip. And then it was gone. It didn't leave and I was able to follow it. It just like dissipated and was gone. So you've got orbs and all these things. You have knocking sounds in all these things. I think it's all related. And it may very well be that those sounds, those effects that we see or feel or hear may be them coming into our perception. Those might be a relic of them coming into our perception because we can't always perceive these things, right? These things seem to come out of nowhere and stuff like that. So I hear the dogs barking. I think the guys here. We ran a little longer than I thought. I loved meeting you guys. Fantastic.
Love meeting you too, bud.
Yes, Jacob, nice to meet you. And Matt, thanks so much for the invitation. I'm going to leave you with that. You guys ponder it, think about it. Let me know what you think. I got to roll.
All right.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
See ya. All right,
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. So, I think it's been a great show, man. We went deep on a couple of things. We touched on a lot of things that I would love at some point to come back around and go deeper on some of these. But I had a blast. So I appreciate you, Jacob, and Matthew for putting this together.
Well, man. Because I'll get with Eric after this. I mean, I know we're still being recording, which is fine, and so the audience can hear. But yeah, I'll get with Eric. We'll talk about maybe about once a month or every other month. We'll do a similar episode. Y'all down for that?
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I can't
All
wait.
right. So,
All right.
And
so
Jacob can talk more.
I'll plug Eric real quick, you guys. So y'all can follow Eric again on any of the social media platforms, all your streaming services, Uncomfortable, lowercase u, capital N. Does a great show. I'm ready for him to come back to get going again. And then me, Drunken Cryptids, all social media, all streaming platforms. Fighting with Apple right now. There's Apple on fight. Yeah, Apple only has one episode of mine. We're trying to figure this out. Whatever. More money. And Alan, of course, you guys, Nevermore Hollows, my favorite storytime podcast.
I cannot wait until you hear the newest episode. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I cannot wait.
Well,
because it's going to be awesome.
Time travel. This is dropping on Thanksgiving, so I'll have already heard it by the time everybody here sees this one.
I forgot. I forgot. Okay, we'll have to get in the TARDIS and go back.
So with that, so the folks that are going to be hearing this episode, I have written an episode that includes Matthew and Jacob from the Drunken Cryptids podcast, and they are now, for quote unquote, canon in the Nevermore Hollows universe. And it's a I went full on B movie with this one. I wanted to have fun, and I considered, do we make it this deep episode? Do we make it a dark episode? And I thought, you know what, these guys, they like to have fun. So this is, hopefully you guys will, Jacob and Matthew, I hope you all like it, but I also hope that the listeners that follow Nevermore Hollows, that you like it too, because it's more of our silly, tongue-in-cheek B movie kind of things. But Jacob, Matthew, when y'all hear it, it'll be available in the morning. I'm curious to see what you think. But I got to tell you this: both of you have some good lines in the story. Both of you have some good scenes in the story. But Matthew delivers the ultimate line. And I'm not going to tell you where it is, but when you deliver that ultimate line, what I envision is that both of y'all go, hell yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, that's it for me. Thank y'all for doing this.
There you go.
And so that we'll see y'all on the next round.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
All right. Happy Thanksgiving, folks.
I can do anything that I want. I can do anything that I want now. I can do anything that I want. Hey, hey, if it is to be, you know that it's up to me. I'm headed to the front. I can be